Hello, and welcome to 6 Second Jobs Club webinar. This week we're talking about You're Hired. And I've tentatively titled it, What I Wish Someone Had Told Me About Getting a Job. And really that's kind of where it falls through the cracks a lot of times for people. They don't really know what the steps are. They have an idea, or they know somebody who's landed a job, or they've talked to recruiters, or they've talked to counselors at the school or college or one-stop job center, but they don't really have a handle on everything that's necessary. So today we're going to kind of go through the steps a little bit, and I'll give you some tools and tricks and things from the other side of the desk that will hopefully shorten the time it takes to land your dream job, and secondarily give you more confidence and reduce your stress. So, there are a lot of things to do when you're looking for work, and there's a lot of different plates you have to spin and a lot of different things that you're working on. And even if you're not currently employed for whatever reason, you have responsibilities outside of just looking for a job. And we'll discuss that in some parts of this. We'll also, there are other tools available here at 6 Second Resumes that will give you other insights into that, but don't worry, we've got a lot of strategies, and once you find the right ones, you're going to be successful, and it's going to build a lot of confidence too. And that's something I work with a lot. My clients really have a lot of confidence in what they do because I'm standing next to them, giving them permission to be great, and I want you to feel the same way so that you have that confidence to go out there, because a lot of times that in and of itself is one of the reasons why you end up landing the job. And I don't want you to feel worried. Again, it really is a thing to do with your ability to focus on the task at hand and break it into smaller segments and really break it into manageable pieces. And I have tools for that available on the site, and have ideas that we'll cover today, along with ideas that I've covered in previous webinars, or we'll be talking about more at length in future webinars as well. Your ability to take individual pieces of the puzzle and work on those and reduce your stress. I mean, gosh, it's hard enough just making it through the day for anybody, whether you have a job or not. There's all sorts of different things that are going on, and you add the stress of being unemployed or underemployed, or not having the position that you'd really like, and that just makes it even harder. But the good news is, at any point we can change our minds about how we think about it, at least, and that gets us going towards our new dream job. So there's a few things I want to make sure that we cover today, and the first one is the 3 things that will make you a successful interviewee. And I think that's a word. But really it's things that everybody who's successful in their job search, those candidates will always do, and that helps set them apart. Another thing I want to cover is make sure you think about what you're going to do before you hit send, before you make that phone call, before you apply for that position. What should you do? And we'll cover that in a little bit more detail. There's one thing that I feel like is one of the most important parts of the interview, and I want to make sure that you're aware of what that is and how that works in terms of the face-to-face interview. And then there really are only 4 must-know statements that every successful job interviewee uses, and we're going to cover those, and I'll give you some examples of statements that people have used in the past that have been very successful for them, and then you can emulate those and model them based on your own successes and your own success stories. And then finally, I want you to make sure that you're clear about how to follow up and why and when, and how to do that in a professional manner, because I know a lot of people have concerns about that, and should I call, or is it too soon, or is it too late, or I don't want to appear pushy, or did he really say a week, or did she say a week from Thursday, or so. Give you some strategies on that to make sure that you are following up at the right times and doing it in a professional way that's going to help your job success. But first, why should you listen to me? What have I got going on that's going to help you? Well, I've been on the other side of the desk for probably 35 or more years. I hate to say it, but it's been a long, long time. And I see people coming in for interviews and for all types of positions, and it's really I feel sad. Nobody really taught them how to interview, and nobody taught them what to say or how to dress or what to think about and how to research. And so about 7-8 years ago now, I started 6-second resumes as a way to kind of give back and to teach. Done a lot of work with the New Jersey Department of Labor, and I've done free seminars, National Career Fair events where I set up a table and kind of talk to people about their resumes and their attitude and what they should be thinking about. And I've read probably close to 3,000 resumes and a total of 5,000 resumes and individual applications. And so there's a lot of things I've seen that sitting on the other side of the desk that are really helpful, and I have been sharing those with anybody who'll listen, really, because I feel like there's not enough of that information out there. And directly related to that is how you think about the whole process. And I'm going to teach you how to think like a hiring manager, how to think like somebody sitting on the other side of the desk, because you'll hear this in a lot of different material that I offer. It really isn't about you, even though it is your job that you're applying for and your future. The employer is more interested in can you solve their problem, and the more you can present that in the way that they understand, the easier it is for them to see you as the right person for the position. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about all the different things that I first covered. But I want you to know that at one point I was kind of in the same shoes that you're in terms of looking for a position. I had a job with a retailer and had been with them for 7 years, and things were going really well. They were talking about a district manager's position, but I could see that the company something wasn't right. And so I got out and bought a vending business in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I took it from $90,000 in gross sales, this is the late 80s, to $250,000 in gross sales in 20 months, and was just having a blast and a lot of fun. And I landed the contract for the Anheuser-Busch Brewery in Williamsburg to do the vending for them, and I was going to have to put another truck on the road and hire another driver and buy equipment for that facility. And as I was doing that, I happened to run into the fellow who was running the snack bar, the little restaurant there for the employees. And he had always wanted to get into the vending business, it turned out. And so the next thing I know, I've sold my business, and now I've got a wife, 3 small children, and a mortgage, and no job. And that was kind of scary. And so I created a plan. Back then I used the phone, the Sunday paper, 3x5 cards in a file box. Some of you may recognize that. Some of you might not even know what that is. But it worked. And I actually had 5 job offers, 3 of which I entertained at the same time. So it was me picking what I wanted to do as opposed to me hoping somebody would hire me. And so I'll tell you more about that as we go along. But I have been there, and I have actually what I've been using now with my clients is even better today because of the internet and because of the tools that we have available to us. So it continues to work even today. There are really 3 things that will make you a successful interviewee and will make the interview go very smoothly and successfully. And the first one is preparation. And a lot of people don't put enough energy or effort into that. They recognize the name of the company because it's a big company. They recognize, they know a little bit about it because their Aunt Sarah has a friend who told them a few things about it. But they really don't prepare. They really don't even think about, a lot of people don't think about the position before they apply. Statistically, it turns out most people spend about 60 seconds, that's 1 minute, before they decide to apply for a position or not. We spend more time looking at the value menu at Wendy's, deciding whether we're going to get the crispy chicken burger or we're going to get the value fries or the Mr. Frosty or whatever it is. We spend a lot of time thinking about meals and planning for that and deciding what we're going to eat. And that's just one meal. The job could end up being, if you got it, could be 4 years to 27 and a half years. Who the heck knows? So you've got to really spend the time to decide if that's right for you. And then secondarily, you've got to spend the time looking into the company itself. There's a lot of things you can do with Google Alerts. You can research the company, you can research the industry, you can research the senior members of the organization. If you happen to know who you're going to be interviewing with, sometimes on LinkedIn that information is available. You can research them and take a look at that as well. And it's very important that you do the right amount of research and really look into things. One of the embarrassing moments I have when I was actually sitting behind the desk interviewing is when you have candidates come in and one of the first questions they ask you is, what is it you guys do again? And that just, that's the end of it for their chances. And it's embarrassing, So I want you to make sure that you have done your homework, and even to the point where you've got a few little things written down. So when you get that face-to-face interview, you can talk about challenges that the company is facing, or the success stories they've had, or a new initiative that they're getting ready to push out there, so that you're ready and you're confident and you know the answers. The second thing is to really be enthusiastic. You'd be surprised. It turns out that almost 50%, 49.5% of all hiring managers say that candidates lack enthusiasm. They don't smile. They're not just not open and enthusiastic about the position. Now, it's important to understand that you might be nervous and you might not feel as comfortable as you would if you were going to see a friend for a movie or a night out or something like that. But in the end, it's just a conversation. And the more you can think of it as a conversation between two people, the easier it is for you to not only answer their questions, but to find out if this is something that you want to do. You're interviewing them as well as they're interviewing you. You've got to remember that and make sure that you think of it as a conversation. And in the end, if you still have some butterflies, just make them fly in formation. It's okay to have those butterflies. You just got to throttle them in and focus them where you want to go, and things will be good. So start with a smile, and always start with a story of success. One of the great things I feel that I do for my clients is make sure that they know their success stories, that they know their stars, and that's a situation, an action, and a result. So, can you tell me about a time where you had to take care of a disgruntled customer? And so you can say, well, here's the situation that happened. Here is the action that I took or my team took. And more importantly, and most importantly, and here's the results of what happened. Here's how it turned out. And by thinking about those ahead of time, you have the answers to the quiz. You have the answers to, you can really pretty much get an idea of what types of questions based on the industry, based on the type of position, what are they going to ask about. And if you've read the job description, which I hope you have, and really dissected it, you'll know what the main bullet points are, the 6 to 7 actual types of questions that they're going to ask related to these different topics. Can you do this? Do you have this type of experience? Tell me about a time where you did this. And by having those stars, by having those situations, actions, and results, your success stories already planned out, you're in a much better position when it comes to making a good impression. So, when you get back to that ad, you've really got to spend the time to think about what you're going to do. How are you going to research? How are you going to project a positive image? Do you have a 6-second message? Do you know what your value points are? Do you know why we should hire you? And then you've got to be prepared when the phone rings. Now I'm going to jump right ahead to the next page. This worksheet is available for download at the end of this webinar. But it basically, that 6-second message is, why should I hire you? And you've got to know that. And you've got to know that the one thing that sets you apart from everybody else. And the best way to do that is by working through this type of an exercise. My resume clients help supply some of this information, and I dig it out and add it so that they're clear about what their successes are. But these supporting messages are basically the things that most people think about when it comes to a job, and then it's the how you did it. It's the accomplishments. It's really, so if there's a supporting message about customer service, then here's how I perform these activities. If there's a skill involving Sigma 6 or Six Sigma, you can talk about how you've done that. If there's a skill about property management and how many millions of square feet you've managed, you can talk about that and some of your successes. That distinguishing message is also an opportunity to show the hiring manager how you might have a skill that would be valuable above and beyond that they're not asking for in the job description. But maybe you're award winning. Maybe it's a customer service type position, and you've had awards in different places that you've worked. That would set you apart from other people. Maybe you're a plumber, and maybe you're fluent in 3 different languages, and there's those types of communities in the area where you would be working, and you can use that as another advantage that would set you apart from everybody else. But in the end, you've got to know why people should hire you, and you have to be able to articulate that. The old elevator speech type of thing, that 30-second. Not that you should have a canned message available, but it doesn't hurt if you do. And whether you really use it or not, that's up to you. How you use it, but just knowing it in the back of your mind, you can bring out the points that you need as you go through the interview. So, we're going to talk about the most important part of the job interview, and we'll jump into this for a minute. In terms of, you've done your homework, you've gotten the job face-to-face opportunity, you've gotten the job interview, you're in the lobby, you're waiting for the interviewer to come and meet you, and so it's really that first 6 seconds. And no surprise, it's 6-second resumes and 6 seconds. It really is an opportunity for you to make eye contact, to smile, to make sure that you are standing if you can, make sure that you are facing that person and that you are open. And you look them in the eye and offer a firm handshake. It's really, it's very simple actually. But a lot of people don't do it. They're nervous. They look away when they say the person's name. They don't make eye contact. I feel like standing is the gives you much better leverage and makes you feel a lot more confident. Confident and comfortable. If you're sitting and the person comes over, there's just it's a them looking down on you kind of thing. Whereas if you're standing, even if there's a height differential, you're still the power dynamics is a whole lot different. And I feel much better standing, and I feel like it really helps me project a more positive, want to get things done kind of image. So, these are things that you really should think about and make sure that you are ready, that that you're alert to what's going on. I mean, you can use your time in the waiting room to make sure that you've taken advantage of the company culture and kind of see what's on the walls and see how people are interacting with each other. Because again, you want to make sure, if this is the place you're going to work, you want to make sure that these people fit into the type of job environment you're looking for. And then finally, if you're not enthusiastic, again, you are with 50% of the people who apply for positions. So you can set yourself up to only be competing against half of the group just by being enthusiastic and just by making that first impression and smiling. So there's really, I said earlier, there's 4 must-know statements in every successful job interviewer's basket. And this one, we'll go through the 4 different statements because I want you to understand, and I'll give you examples of each one so that you can figure out where you stand with these and examples for your particular industry. So the first one is, I understand what your company does. These little fly-ins are pretty wild. I'd forgotten I'd put these in, so I'm a little hesitant here. I've increased sales in positions I've held in the past. I've decreased expenses in positions I've held in the past. And I've provided excellent customer service in positions I've held in the past. So these are the 4. And so we'll take a minute and kind of explore each one. So you understand the company. So again, it's really important that you've done your homework and you know what they're about. You know what is going on. You know what's going on in the industry. You know who their major competition is. If it's a manufacturing plant, you have an idea of the commodity costs of what's going on in terms of that. If it's retail, you have an idea of what they sell and who their competition is. If it's property management, you know about that. If it's nursing, you could spend some time figuring out how this particular organization competes with other local organizations and what are their specialties and what types of challenges they have. Maybe the demographic of the clientele, or maybe it's funding or whatever the issues are, so that you're ready to talk about it and you can share your insights in a way that shows value. You increase sales. I tell the story of as a big box retailer, AGM. I would usually work Sundays, and there was another team that worked Saturdays, and we decided on Sunday there was this little promotion we were doing, and we got the cashiers behind it and the management team. And on this particular Sunday, we just went after it. And we had a lot of fun, and we were able to share value with our customers and put some numbers up on the screen for the Monday staff meeting that were pretty exciting. So what happened was the Saturday team thought, well, they could show us up. So that coming Saturday, they had put some ideas together and gotten their staff rolling on it. And of course, I couldn't be shown up. So on Sunday of that following week, we went after it again. And by the staff meeting on that following Monday, we had both Saturday and Sunday's teams had really shown and taken off. So it got to be pretty exciting. So it got to be a weekly event. And we went from being down 17% in this particular category as a building to up 27, almost 30% within about 6 weeks, to the point where one of our regional vice presidents is calling my boss wanting to know what the heck's going on. Why all of a sudden we're just jumping up hugely in this particular promotion, and he was just amazed that we had done that. And that's a good thing. You want to have that recognized in that way. And again, if you were interviewing for a position, to have that story in your toolbox as a success story would be helpful. And if you are asked, can you increase sales, and you say, well, I could sell ice boxes to Eskimos, and I don't know if you can even say that anymore, but at one point people use that as an example, and so that's one way to say, yeah, I can sell anything. Or you could say, well, here's an example of how we went from minus 17% to plus 30% in sales on this particular category by way of my story. And that's much more memorable for a hiring manager. Decreased expenses. So, you can say, well, I don't know if I really have a type of position where that's even applicable, but even a switchboard operator can make inputs and save costs for the company. It's pretty unusual for a switchboard to have just one line, unless you're a very small company. So maybe there's 8 or 9 incoming lines, and after years of working at this company, you realize that out of the 8 or 9 lines, only 3 are getting used, that they don't need those other 5. And so you talk to your supervisor, who talks to the somebody further up the food chain, and in the end they cancel the lines that aren't being used, and you're saving the company money every month. Or maybe you don't have a job yet. Maybe you're a college or high school student, and you're putting on a field trip for something, and you negotiate a better deal with a different bus company, and you save the school $300 or $400. There's a lot of different ways you can decrease expenses, and you just have to think about your particular situation and find those examples so that you're ready to share them in the interview. Providing excellent customer service is another big part of every interview. Just about every position out there has some sort of interaction with customers, with vendors, with different interested parties, and you have to be able to make a good impression, and you have to be able to take care of that customer and make them want to continue to shop or continue to engage with your company and take advantage of the services that you have to offer. And it's real easy to say, well, I'm a people person, when asked if you're good at customer service, and well, my dog Ricky, she's a people person, but I wouldn't hire her for a customer service position. So there's another thing you can think about is what have you done in the past to take care of a customer service situation? Can you tell me a time where you did something to resolve a situation? And I think back to when I was a store manager with Best Products, a catalog merchandiser, back in a long time ago. And it was Hopewell, Virginia, and it was 8:30 at night. We closed at 5, and the phone rings, and it's a man on the line, and he says he bought a ride-on car for his son for Christmas, a battery-operated car, and he said the battery's missing from the package, and what was I going to do about it? And here it is, 8:30 at night, and I didn't know if this was a setup or not, but I told him I would meet him at the store, and I called my assistant manager and had him meet me there just in case, and it turns out the guy was legit, and he just didn't have the battery, and so we opened another package, and we found a battery for him, and Christmas was saved. A few days after Christmas, he came in and shook my hand and thanked me, said his 7-year-old son really enjoyed the present, and he was so pleased that we had taken the time to do that for him. So if you're a hiring manager and you've got somebody over on one side who's a people person, and then you've got the Christmas Eve story, it makes it a whole lot easier for you to go to your team and say, hey, I'm going to hire this person, and let me tell you about what they did on Christmas Eve. And because when you think about it, the hiring manager has to report to somebody, and maybe it's a corporate official. In my case, I was operations. Over the years, all the thousands of people I hired actually worked for me, or worked under me, or worked in some fashion where I met them. And on top of that, I had teams of people who relied on me to hire the right person. And so I'm not going to bring somebody in who's a people person when I can bring in the Christmas Eve person. So you've got to plan ahead and know your successes and be able to share them in the interview. And I think the Christmas Eve story is one of my examples of how providing customer service, how you'll remember that. So the next part of what I want to talk about is to make sure that you're following up properly. During the beginning of the interview, one of the things I tell my clients is to make sure that you've got a blue notebook that you can open up, and you've got some paper in there. You've got extra copies of your resume. But one of the things you want to do is ask if you can take notes. Would they mind if you took notes? And I haven't had anybody say that they told them no, they couldn't do that. And on that same paper somewhere, you would also have questions prepared ahead of time on what you want to talk about, what you want to ask them at the end, because you know that that's going to come. Do you have any questions for me? But then during the course of the interview, you have the chance to write down additional questions. So my clients will have a minimum of 4 or 5 questions to ask at the end, and to follow up with the hiring manager when they say, do you have any questions for me? But one of the questions that I make sure that my clients ask is, what's next? And what's the next step in the process? When will you be making a decision? Anything they feel comfortable with along those lines. But they absolutely have to ask for permission to follow up. Can I call you next Tuesday? When they say, we'll know something by next Tuesday, can I call you next Tuesday? Can I check in with you at this point to see where we're at? Now you have their permission to follow up. Now it's not a guessing game. Now it's not, well, it's Thursday and I haven't heard, and maybe I'll give them a couple more days, or maybe next Tuesday I'll try, or if I haven't heard from them by, and then a couple of days turns into a couple of weeks, and the next thing you know, it's like, well, I'm not sure now. It's been so long. I'm not even sure if I should follow up. So ask permission and make sure you write down whatever it is that they tell you and do it. Also, the thank you note, I had a client, actually he was part of a group at Jersey Jobs Club presentation that I did. And when I talked about thank you notes and mailing one, he said, well, the last interview I went on, I didn't think it went all that well. And so why should I waste a stamp in an envelope if I don't think I'm going to get the job anyway? And I personally thought that was kind of he was shortchanging himself. One, he didn't have enough confidence in his interview. But secondly, I have one of the positions that I actually was offered during my time after I sold my vending business. One of the offers came after I followed up, and the man as much as told me that the reason that he offered me the position was because I followed up. He said that was actually the last part of the interview was him hearing back from me and me following up to make sure when he told me to. And so I just feel like that for the cost of a stamp and 5 minutes of your time, the results can be very life-changing, actually. And with emails, it doesn't cost you anything to spend a minute or two other than your time to shoot an email to everybody that you interviewed with. But that snail mail is still a great way to get somebody's attention. And I've even gone so far to have clients pre-address and write the cards out to some extent, and then personalize them at the end of the interview and mail them the same day. It really is helpful. And then, again, the whole point of this is to find out when they want you to follow up, and then do it, and to make sure that you are following up as needed, and as you said you would. So, when should you stop your job search? When I was doing it after I sold my vending business, I didn't stop until I was in my new hire orientation. And I had a certain number of applications I was sending out every day. I had a certain number of follow-ups I was doing. I had a written plan day by day. And I didn't stop. I mean, it was hard not to when you've got, you're juggling 3 different offers at the same time. But, it really, until you get into you're hired and you're in your new hire orientation, all sorts of things can happen. And the more you think about it as one big long process, as opposed to, I've got this phone call coming on Thursday, so I don't have to do anything. And oh shoot, the phone call didn't work out so well, so now I've got to dig myself up and get going again, and now I'm way up here because now I've got an interview, and it didn't go as well as I thought. So now I'm down here in the dumps. And so that up and down type of thing, I just felt like that wasn't going to help me at all. And I've seen in my clients how when we get past that and get into more of an even keel, that's okay to be excited when you get a call, and it's okay to be disappointed when you don't. But in the end, you have to have a written plan, and you have to really follow that if you're going to be successful in your job search. So, when you're sitting in your new hire orientation, life is good. So we covered what makes you a successful interviewee, and how it's important to smile, that you'll just having enthusiasm will put you ahead of 50% of those people applying for the position. How you should stand, how you should make eye contact, a firm handshake without shaking the person's hand off their arm. What you must do before you contact an employer. We talked a little bit about the research. We talked a lot about preparation and getting your stories straight in terms of your stars and knowing what your accomplishments are, kind of having an idea of how the interview is going to go. The single most part of the interview, we talked about the 4 must-know statements. You have done your research. You know how to cut expenses. You know how to increase sales. And you know about customer service. And we talked about the different examples of each of those types of situations, and how, again, you'll have success stories, and it's important that you have thought about them ahead of time. And again, I really, knowing, having interviewed thousands of people, I really know that a lot of people haven't thought about it. They really, their attitude is, just get me into the interview, and I'll take it from there, and I can wing it. And winging, can't even say it. Winging it doesn't always work, and it's more important for you to have thought about some of these things ahead of time. I mean, yeah, in a sense, you're winging it when you're sitting there, but if you've written down your ideas, if you've thought about them ahead of time, if you have an idea of what the questions are that are going to be asked, you're just so much further ahead, and it gives you that confidence, which projects into how you're perceived by the hiring manager. And then we talked a lot about follow-up, and we talked about the different ways and the reasons why, and how important it is to ask permission to follow up so that you are the person in charge and you have peace of mind because you know when the next step in the process is and you know what your responsibilities are, and it's easy then to just do them. So, you can kind of figure out which person you are at this point. The person on the left, their brand is probably going to be perceived a little differently than the person on the right. And it's real important that you think about that. And you want to be the person that's being considered for the position. And you really need to understand the different steps that we've talked about today. And I know there's a lot of information here, and in my other teachings and in my website areas, there are other articles and other training about some of these things, but it gives you an overview. And again, these are the things that I wish somebody had told me when I first started from high school in terms of getting a job and being able to understand what was being asked of me in the interview. So, congratulations. You've taken a big step towards your new hire orientation, and I'm excited that you spent some time with me today. I appreciate your patience in going through the different slides, and if there's anything I can do to further your search for your dream job, please just shoot me a line. My email is still Joel Quas at Good Management is not. And I run a jobs board, One Stop Jobs Online. And then I have tools and resources available at 6 Second Resumes. So I look forward to hearing from you and hearing you say that you are hired.